Hey guys, Mr.Saldivar here, coming to you live from my blanket fort in my living room. I thought this was going to be a good setting for us today for our assignment this week. So before I tell you more about that, let's go ahead and do our one-word check-in. So wherever you are, whether you've made yourself a blanket fort or you're at home or you're in the living room, just go ahead and sit crisscross applesauce on the floor and close your eyes. Take that breath in. Let it out. I want you to take this time to think about your day from the moment that you woke up to the moment that you walked into this room. Maybe you just woke up. Maybe you found your way here after a long day, and this is the last thing you're doing. Think about everything that's happened today. And when you have a word, I want you to go ahead and open your eyes. Remember, it can be any word that you like as long as the word is school appropriate. All right? On the count of three, we're going to share it together. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Weird. Good. All right, as always, I want you to go ahead and put your hands out. Take all the good stuff, grab it, hold on to it, squeeze it in, don't let it go. All the bad stuff, throw it in the middle, smush it down, 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 put it into a nice, neat little snowball, and on the count of three, toss it over to the llama. 1, 2, 3, hoocha! This week, we're doing something called a story spine. This is a really simple outline format that you can use to create a story. It's a good jumping off point. They use this in something called improv, which is a type of theater where they make things up on the spot. They use this outline to keep them on line with the story and kind of keep things progressing. So I'm going to give you an example right now of a story that you probably know, because you can fit almost any story you can think of into this outline. And then I'm going to give you an example of what I want us to do this week, which is what I'm calling silly, scary stories. This is the story spine. Each of these is a little sentence starter to help you create the story. Now, each of these are their own individual sentences. So, starting off at the top, once upon a time, and you would continue on with that sentence, every day, until one day, and because of that, and because of that, and because of that, until finally, and ever since then. Each of the colors you see here represents a different part of where it falls in story structure. Everything in blue is happening at the beginning, everything in green would happen in the middle, and everything that's in orange would happen at the end. Almost any story you can think of can fit into this structure, and we're going to start with one that you might know. I've taken out the name of the character because you might be able to guess what the story is. So, here we go. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived in the woods. Every day, she helped her parents at their bakery and followed all the rules. Until one day, she took some sweets to her sick grandmother and strayed from the path. And because of that, she encountered a wolf who wondered where she was going. And because of that, she told the wolf she was going to her grandmother's house. And because of that, the wolf ate the grandmother and the little girl. Until finally, a hunter freed the grandmother and girl from the wolf's stomach. And ever since then, the little girl learned that she should follow the rules. And you probably already guessed that this is the story of Little Red Riding Hood. The best examples of story spines use cause and effect, which I know this is a concept I'm sure your homeroom teachers have used, but we can always use a quick refresher. Cause is the reason why something happens, and the effect is what actually happens. So let's go back to the story of Little Red Riding Hood. If we hop back into the story where it says she strayed from the path, because she strayed from the path, she encountered the wolf. And because she encountered the wolf, she revealed where she was going, to Grandma's house. Because she revealed where she was going, she ended up getting eaten by the wolf. The best stories use cause and effect because it helps keep the story moving forward. So this week, I want you guys to use the story spine to create what I'm calling silly, scary stories. A story that you might tell around a campfire that has a silly twist. I'm going to use an example that I made, which is the story of the lemons and the limes. I started by writing the story spine sentence starters down the side of my page, leaving a little bit of space after each one so I could come up with my ideas. Then I went and wrote out the story first, using cause and effect, and a couple other tips I'm going to give you after this. So, here is my story spine. Once upon a time, there was an evil lemon. Every day, he would pick on the sweet, tiny little limes, until one day, the limes had had enough. They stood up for themselves. And because of that, the lemon was angry and gathered all the lemons in the kitchen. And because of that, the lemons and the limes had a great war. And because of that, the lemons and the limes were sliced all over the kitchen. Until finally, the humans found them and squeezed them into their drinks. And ever since then, the lemons and the limes learned you shouldn't fight, unless you want to end up in a human's drink. Some tips to help you as you start your story spine. When you start with Once Upon a Time, you want to introduce your main character. In my case, I introduced the evil lemon. Now your character could be a human, it could be an object, like I chose a lemon, or it could be an animal. That's entirely your choice. As you continue on to the everyday section, you want to establish your main character's routine. In this case, the evil lemon decides to pick on the little limes every single day. Moving on to until one day, that routine needs to change. This is the start of the problem or the conflict. And in this case, the limes had had enough and they decided to stand up for themselves. As we move on to the middle, we start to establish that cause and effect. Because the limes decided to stand up for themselves, the lemon gathered the rest of the lemons in the kitchen. And because the lemons were all gathered together, the lemons and the limes had the Great War. And because they had the Great War, they ended up sliced into a bunch of different pieces. As we move into the end with until finally, you now start to find a conclusion. And in mine, the lemons and the limes were found by the humans and squeezed into their drinks. At the end, you want to make sure your characters learn something, and in this case, the lemons and the lime learn you shouldn't fight unless you want to end up in a human's drink. As you're working, you might want to refer to this slide, so I'm going to leave it up for a few more seconds, and you might want to pause it on YouTube, so feel free to do so. As we said last week, the goal is have fun. So take your characters to wacky places. If you want to even use your puppets from last week, use your puppets to tell the story. Have a good time. Create a little performance as you finish it all up. I went back into my blanket fort and used a flashlight and a little bit of help with some music and special effects to create my story. So here's the final performance of my story spine. Hope you guys have fun and I'll see you next week. Bye. Once upon a time, there was an evil lemon. Every day, he would pick on the sweet, tiny little limes. Until one day, the limes had had enough. They stood up for themselves. And because of that, the lemon was angry and gathered all the lemons in the kitchen. And because of that, the lemons and the limes had a great war. And because of that, the lemons were sliced all over the kitchen. Until finally, the humans found them and squeezed them into their drinks. And ever since then, the lemons and the limes learned you shouldn't fight unless you want to end up in a human's drink. I hope you guys enjoyed the story spine activity. Just like last week, photos and videos are not required, but I love to see them. So if you typed yours up, or even if you wrote it on a piece of paper and you want to snap a photo and send it to me, feel free to send it my way. I love seeing your work. Bonus points if you send me a video, because I love to see those videos. I love to see your faces, especially now when we're so far away. So feel free to send them my way, Nicholas.Saldivar at SarasotaCountySchools.net. Miss you guys, and see you next week.